If you are in a place where it is appropriate for you to do so, close your eyes and start to take a few slow, long, relaxing, deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, feel more peace and more light entering your body and mind. With every exhale, feel like gravity is taking away all tension and anything you do not want. Inhaling peace and exhaling as you let go of tension. We picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our circle, a bonfire blazes forth, lighting us and the grove up with a sacred golden light. We recognize that this is the light of perfect love and perfect trust, and it burns away easily everything that is not like itself. Into this sacred space, we invoke the presence of our Creator. To many of us, our Creator reveals themselves to be a god and goddess, a mother and father. Into this sacred space, we also call upon the presence of our teachers, our angels, and our guides. We ask that they join with us as we dedicate this time that we spend together to each other and to them. We ask that we be guided and led as we walk upon the way, becoming happier, more peaceful, more loving, more joyous people. Thank you very much. And if it's appropriate for you to do so out loud, join me in saying, "Blessed be." There was a witch in New York City that was pretty active in the 80s and 90s. She's no longer with us. Her name was Marion Weinstein, and she and I were kindred spirits on many levels. She called herself a Dianic witch, and that was before Dianic witchcraft became a feminist thing. Diana was her goddess. That was how she understood the great goddess. She wrote a wonderful book called Positive Magic, and I think it's still around. Back then, sometimes a lot of people would roll their eyes about Marion Weinstein and positive magic, but she really understood metaphysical law. She really understood things. And one of her later books was called Words of Power. And it's a good book. I would recommend reading it if you can find a copy. I think it's available on Kindle. In fact, I was supposed to review that book, and I took so long. She asked me, she was really sweet. She said, "Would you please review my book on your podcast?" This was back when I had a podcast. I said, "Of course I will. I would be happy to. It's a wonderful book." And I put it off, and then she died. I felt so bad. I never really gave her the public acknowledgement that she deserved while she was alive. All of that to say that she and I came from a very similar point of view when it came to magical law. And the main law of the universe is the law of cause and effect. And in the Hermetic principles, that is the number one law. Everything kind of comes out of the law of cause and effect. It's sort of like the grand law, the prime law, and everything else comes out of that. One of the Hermetic laws or principles that comes directly out of the law of cause and effect is the law of mentalism. The law of mentalism says that all thought brings about form on some level. All thought brings about form on some level. And it's interesting because I don't know who was able to measure this, but some of the experts have come up with this idea that we think an estimated 60,000 thoughts per day. Now, how accurate that is, I don't know, but that sounds like it's probably up there with the truth. 60,000 thoughts a day. When you hear all thought creates form on some level, and then a lot of law of attraction type people say, so you have to really monitor your thoughts. How do you monitor 60,000 thoughts? I mean, how is that even possible? No wonder people get tired when they try to work with any kind of magical or metaphysical law. If they really think that they have to be in control of 60,000 thoughts a day. There's no way. There's no way. So that's not the way to handle your reality, to try to monitor all of those thoughts, because you can't. So stop trying to give yourself a break. There's no possible way that you can monitor all your thoughts. Because for one thing, some of your thoughts don't ever bubble up into your conscious awareness enough for you to even recognize what they are. So much of our thinking happens on the unconscious level, and you don't even get a glimpse of those unless you're maybe remembering your dreams. Put to bed this idea that you're supposed to monitor all your thoughts all the time. So what do? Are we just out of luck? We just don't have any way to take charge of our lives since all of our thoughts are creating form on some level and there's too many thoughts for us to keep track of? What are we supposed to do? Well, you may not be able to keep track of all of those thoughts, but you can keep track of your words. That you can do. I always say what comes out of your mouth and what goes into your mouth is 100% your responsibility. You can, just like you can control what you eat, you can control what you say. It may not always be easy, but you can. And if you think about how a verbalized thought is much more powerful than just thinking a thought. When you verbalize a thought, you are putting it into form and you're giving auditory vibrations to it. And there's a whole lecture on magic words in my lecture catalog that you can look up that talks about the power of magic words and how your words can really bring about powerful changes in your life. But without even thinking in terms of what you do with your words in ritual, what you do with your words in casual conversation, what you speak to yourself under your breath, the kinds of things that you say to yourself while you're driving, or what kinds of things that come up when you're chit-chatting with friends, those are all very important, focused thought that is potentially bringing about form on some level or another. Not thinking that you have to bring all of your 60,000 thoughts per day under conscious control, but you can start to bring about the words that you speak under your conscious control. And when you do that, just understanding first and foremost that monitoring your speech and being aware of it is the first step. You don't even have to change or know how to change your speech, but just monitoring the things you say, you're going to be amazed. No wonder my life looks the way it does. Listen to my words. Listen to what I'm saying. So one of the things that Marion Weinstein taught was the idea of canceling out things that we say by rote when we recognize that we've said something that we don't want to bring about. And a lot of people take what she said and treat it rather superstitiously. And it wasn't meant to be a superstitious thing. You can't be superstitious about every single thing you say is going to bring about a specific change. That's superstitious. But your words do paint a broad picture as to the general trend of your mind. So what she would say is that when you hear yourself saying something that you don't want, that you undo it, that you completely release it. And she called that taking it out of the law of cause and effect. She called it taking it out of the law of cause and effect. And she would shorten that by just saying take it out of the law, or sometimes she would just say take it out. And I remember when I first learned of this technique, I was so excited because I thought, well, I could try that. That's something I can do. And boy, what a difference did it make in my life. I think I was probably about 17 or 18 when I first learned this from her. And it was amazing. And it still amazes me. When you notice that you're saying something that you don't want and it just comes out, rather than sort of doubling down on it, you just say, oh, you can say it under your breath or even mentally if you're, in mixed company, just say, I take that out of the law. I take that out of the law of cause and effect. I take it out. And that's all it takes. I take it out of the law. When you notice yourself saying, oh, I can't stand that person, let's take that out of the law. Now, it may be true that you can't stand that person, but is that how you want it to continue to be? So you could take that out of the law, because what you're doing is, rather than reaming a thought burrow in your mind that this is a relationship that's never going to be anything but problems for you, You're going to take that out of the law and open up your mind to the idea that there could be a resolution that you don't understand. I never have enough money. I never have enough money at the end of the day. Oh, take that out of the law. There's always more month than there is money. Take that out of the law. Now, we're not saying that you're denying that's true for you, but when you reframe it by taking that out of the law of cause and effect, you are denying the ability for your words to continue and perpetuate that for you. So you can say, I'm open and receptive to a new idea, a new way of looking at this. You don't even have to know what that new way is. You can just say, I'm open to being guided and led into a new way of seeing this. A lot of times we think that it's up to us to know the right thought to think or the right words to say. And sometimes it's real obvious and simple, and we can do that. For instance, if there's a financial problem that you catch yourself saying, oh, of course, every single time, it's more than I can afford. Say that you're saying that, and you say, I take that out of the law. And maybe it's real obvious that, well, I'm open and receptive to having this work out so that I have a surplus of money. Or I call upon the divine law of surplus in this situation. Something like that. Or I'm guided and led by my higher self to find a new and more powerful way of seeing this situation. I'm open and receptive to new forms of income. I'm open and receptive to this situation working out in wonderful new ways that I was not expecting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to know the perfect thing to say. It can be effective where you just, like we do with our waning moon flips in our Witchcraft Beyond the Basics, where you just take a thought that's negative and you just flip it around. It's just like, I never have enough money. I always have enough money. And there's a value in that as far as just being able to reframe something, to be able to just sort of like clean up the thinking. But sometimes your mind will reject that and say, well, that's not true. You're just lying to me. So another option, rather than just having this so-called positive affirmation there, is just say, if you notice yourself, I never have enough money, I take that out of the law of cause and effect, and I'm open and willing to have a better thought be shown to me. I'm open and willing for infinite intelligence to show me a better way of seeing this, a different way of seeing this, a more prosperous way of seeing this. And that way you're not trying to shove your deep mind into a hole that it doesn't want to be in. You're not saying something that it keeps rejecting as a lie. Instead, you're just saying, it's not this, and I don't know what it is, but what it is, I'm open and willing for it to be a lot better than that and a lot different than that. I'm taking that out of the law of cause and effect, and that's no longer happening. So just taking something out of the law of cause and effect sometimes is all you need. But if your habit patterns are such that it just comes up with another thought along the same vein, then in addition to taking something out of the law, you can reframe it by saying, I'm open to a new way of seeing this. I'm open to a prosperous way of seeing this. I'm open to healing. Say you've got a diagnosis, and your first thing is like, oh, great, now I'm going to die. Well, take that out of the law. You don't know that that's true. Take it out of the law. And I'm open and willing to be shown a way to heal. I'm open and willing to have infinite intelligence show me how to heal and how to be healed. That's enough. Rather than being the decider in that moment, I'm deciding that I'm going to die, or I'm deciding that I'm going to be broke, or I'm deciding that I can't stand that person, or I'm deciding that nothing ever works for me. And now I'm saying, I don't want to decide. I'm going to take all of my decisions out of the law, and I'm going to ask that a higher power decide for me. Because obviously I'm not doing a great job of deciding all by myself. So that's fine to know. It's good to know that. If you were involved in something maybe you were at a job, and say that you were hired to be a typist, you were hired to do data entry. And somebody asked you to do something like programming the computer To say, oh, sure, I can do that, when you don't know how to do that wouldn't make any sense, would it? You could say, I don't know how to do that. And they're like, well, it's not very, very difficult programming. Would you be open and willing for me to show you how? Sure. Is there more money? Yeah, there's more money. Oh, yeah, I'd love to learn how. Right? So you see the difference between you saying, sure, I can do that, and you don't know what to do, and you saying, I don't know how to do it, but can you show me? The same thing can be the case for anything in your life. When you show yourself that something is wrong with your speech and you take that out of the law and you don't know what you should have instead, that's okay. You can just say, can you please show me a better thought? You can ask that infinite intelligence. You can ask that inner guide. What's a better thought? What's a better way for me to look at this? What's a way for me to look at this that's going to bring about a result of happiness rather than where this is obviously going? So as you're going about your day, just take it one day at a time. You're going about your day, you're just going to be the Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew and be an investigator and be very attentive. And when something comes out of your mouth that isn't quite what you want, don't chastise yourself. Don't make yourself wrong. In fact, you can celebrate it. You can say, oh, yay, something I can take out of the law. I take that out of the law. I take that out of the law of cause and effect. I don't know a better thought for this, but I'm open and willing to be shown. I'm open and willing to be shown a better way for me to look at this, a more powerful way for me to look at this, so that I can have the results that I want, rather than the results that that other thought was bringing me. We create self-fulfilling prophecy after self-fulfilling prophecy. And it gets very frustrating. It gets extremely frustrating to be alive when you are in a state where you are constantly producing self-fulfilling prophecy after self-fulfilling prophecy, especially when you don't recognize that you're doing that. It's even more frustrating that you don't realize that you have any hand in it. Because then if you don't think that you have any hand in it, another thing that's frustrating is that you don't think that you can do anything about it. So it's just you and this life and this world, and you're always at the effect of it, and you just feel so frustrated constantly. But once you ask, wait a minute, what am I saying? What are my words? I'm not making myself wrong for that. I'm not saying that it's bad for me to say these things, but is that what I really want? How about if I take that out of the law of cause and effect and ask for a better idea? Ask for a different idea. A lot of times people will listen to this when I give them this assignment, and they'll just roll their eyes and just say, ugh, that'll never work. What? Have you tried it? What would it hurt? It doesn't cost you anything. I'm not asking you to buy anything. All you have to do is take some time and give it a fair trial. Give it a few weeks where you just say, I'm going to watch my speech. And when I say something that is out of alignment with that which I desire, I'm going to take it out of the law, and I'm going to ask to be shown a better way of seeing it, a different way of thinking about it. We don't realize the power of our words because you can't see the power of your words. But you can't see gamma rays either. You can't see radio waves. You can't see so much of what's going on. If there was nuclear radiation, you wouldn't be able to see it. You'd only feel the effects of it. And the same goes with our verbal vibrations, our speech vibrations. The power of our speech is as powerful as those gamma rays. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it's not having an effect on you. But you can see the effects of it. And if you just try taking control of your speech and undoing the speech that you don't want and redoing the speech that you do want based on being open and receptive to new ideas from your own inner guide, if you don't see things improving within a few weeks, I would be very surprised. It's just like saying, well, if you take the cleaner and you spray it on the counter and you wipe it dry, your counter's going to be clean. You could say, well, I don't believe you, and then you'd never try it. But if you did it, you'd say, wow, that worked, right? And so those of us who've cleaned a counter before would be like, well, of course that worked. That's how you clean a counter. But if you'd never done it, and somebody just said, well, there's this magical spray and this magical cloth that if you spray it and you wipe it, your counter's going to be cleaned, you'd say, you're so superstitious. How would that even work? Right? Same thing goes with this. Until you try it and prove it to yourself, you won't know that it works. When you notice your speech and you take control of your speech and you start taking certain things out of the law of cause and effect, you're doing the ultimate in self-care. You're taking care of yourself. You're taking care of your mind. You're feeling safer in your universe, and you're starting to see things change course for you. And in doing that, the ego mind loves to get involved in it. And when the ego gets involved in this process, the ego does several things. One, it makes you feel really bad about yourself for having a negative speech pattern. Be aware of that. Be aware that you, if you notice a negative speech pattern and the ego runs with that and it says, oh, how could you do that? That's another thing to take out of the law. To take that out of the law of cause and effect. You're innocent. You have nothing to feel bad about with the fact that you have negative speech patterns. You are mimicking everything that everybody has shown you your whole life. To start taking control of your speech patterns and taking certain things out of the law of cause and effect and reinstilling it with new speech patterns is something that's very outside of the status quo. It's very cutting edge. Even though this kind of thing has been around a long time, most people don't bother. So don't feel bad that you have negative thoughts. Don't feel bad that you fall in lockstep with the rest of the world with the way that you use your speech. Just notice it when you can and do something about it. And you'll be so thrilled and surprised at the results if you are diligent with this practice. It's amazing. So I'm very grateful for Marion Weinstein. I'm very sad that I wasn't able to review her book, but I would recommend that book. It's called Words of Power. And another book of hers that I would recommend is called Positive Magick. Those two books are definitely worth a read. Even though they tend to be not as witchy as a lot of people would like, they are really solid metaphysical and magical principle. So I recommend them highly. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.